One of the big foreign policy related goals for the incoming Biden administration, for many on the left, was an end to US involvement in the Saudi war on Yemen. And apparently that's where we're headed. Take a look at this.
We're also stepping up our diplomacy to end the war in Yemen, a war which has created a humanitarian and strategic catastrophe. I've asked my Middle East team to ensure our support for the United Nations-led initiative to impose a ceasefire, open humanitarian challenge, and restore long dormant peace talks. This war has to end. And to underscore our commitment, we are ending all American support for offensive operations in the war in Yemen, including relevant arms sales.
And this is of course important because many Yemenis have been killed, over 100,000 killed, literally millions displaced both inside and outside of the country. And the attacks have also crippled the infrastructure. It's led to outbreaks of things like cholera. It's led to massive starvation. And so one of the worst conflicts that we were involved with for far too long, all throughout the Trump administration, started under Obama, but he never did anything to stop it. And in fact, escalated by giving ever increasing amounts of weapons to the Saudis, which we now will also be freezing arms sales to them. So that's certainly something. We'll also be naming a special envoy to Yemen to put more pressure on the Saudis and Emiratis as they continue that conflict. So this has been a big goal of a number of different, mostly Democrats, people like Bernie Sanders and Ro Khanna, but some Republicans as well. And it looks like relatively right out the gate, Biden is going to do something about it.
Well, there's some on the so-called left that say that after 19 years of me attacking the Democratic establishment, that I'm a shill for Biden and others. Well, you're going to enjoy this piece of evidence. I like facts, and I like when people do progressive things, no matter what part of the political spectrum they're in. So great credit to Joe Biden and his team for getting us out of the atrocities that are happening in Yemen by our so-called ally, Saudi Arabia. I also want to give credit to a wonderful progressive, Ro Khanna, who was the #1 advocate for stopping our aid to Saudi Arabia in regards to the war in Yemen. And as usual, a progressive led on it. And as usual, we actually get results. That's what happens when progressives lead. But mainly, Biden is in charge here. He made the right decision. I don't agree with every single part of the foreign policy announcements. I think we should. There's going to be a time to wrap up our bases all over the world, and we got to do it smart and carefully. And I'm sure Trump didn't. But I'm not. I don't agree with interventionism as the Democratic leadership normally does, and probably as Joe Biden actually believes. But for the moment being, most of these announcements were very good to great, and the Yemen announcement in particular was fantastic and welcome news, and I'm very happy to see it.
I think I was prepared to be disappointed with Joe Biden in when it comes to international affairs, and I agree. This is great news, and it happened right away. It was clearly a top level priority for him and his foreign relations team. Just because it's happening so far away, I think what's happening in Yemen isn't something just naturally crosses people's minds in the US, but it's really hard to overstate what a tragedy it is over there. The population of Yemen is only 30 million people, so it's smaller than California, and more than 100,000 people have died. The surface area of Yemen is it's just like unfathomably tragic what is happening over there. And just to back up a little bit from the human tragedy though, strategically, I think it's really good that Biden is withdrawing support of the Yemeni civil war and halting sales of arms to the Saudis. I think that it might pave a way for us to maybe re-enter talks with Iran, to possibly re-enter the Iran nuclear deal, which is something that I think was also a foreign policy priority for him.
Exactly, and we have a little bit on the good, a little bit on the bad. If you were like Cenk, if you were ready to come in and like, oh God, Biden's gonna be terrible in this area because Cenk, you spent literally years criticizing Barack Obama's foreign policy in a number of different areas. Well, you're still gonna get to do that a little bit. Let's see, we're gonna be continuing to provide defensive support to Saudi Arabia against missile and drone attacks from Iranian-backed forces. US forces will also continue operations against Al-Qaeda in the Arabian Peninsula. And let's bear in mind that pulling out of the Saudi war on Yemen is not pulling out of Afghanistan, pulling out of Iraq, like there's still a lot over there that has to be dealt with. But as Aaron alluded to, the Biden administration has stated its intention to re-enter the 2015 nuclear deal with Iran. And I want to jump ahead to another, this is a different topic, but this is, I would say, one of the more morally objectionable things that Donald Trump did in his time as president was he effectively eliminated refugee resettlement inside of the United States. Biden says that in order to rebuild American moral leadership, they're going to be restoring the US refugee program and announced an executive order that would raise the number of refugees accepted into the US in the first fiscal year of the Biden-Harris administration to 125,000, which is actually, by my calculations, exactly the same amount as was in the last year of the Obama administration, plus the last year of the Trump administration, because he had cut it down to just 15,000 individuals. So yeah, a little bit more good news.
Yeah, no, I actually don't mind any, but I think the refugee thing is great as well. So that's two really good proposals. And in terms of the protection of Saudi Arabia, look, I loathe their leadership. It's a fundamentalist dictatorship, but they're ostensibly an ally. I don't want to participate in their offensive wars, but if I don't mind defending them if they're an ally, and I don't want anyone getting hurt there. So the defensive measures on Saudi Arabia, and if you notice, the fighting against Al Qaeda, they said was in the Arabian Peninsula, meaning we're going to protect Saudi Arabia. That's not a reference to Iraq, Iran, Afghanistan, or anything along those lines. So I didn't see anything particularly offensive in that portion either.
I just hope under the Biden administration that there's a more direct through line between any action that we take overseas and direct benefit to people back here in the US, because I feel like it's really gotten muddled and there's not really a clear line between what we're doing over there and how that actually helps us or anybody. And I really think we're maybe moving in the right direction now, where hopefully our involvement overseas will be just things that we need to do, nothing more.
Exactly, and hopefully, as we pull out of those things, we can finally get a little bit of money back from the military budget. Because we've had this de facto situation where if you're in war, we'll clearly have to raise the budget. And if you're in peace, well, we have to keep the situation. We certainly can't cut the budget now. Maybe at some point we can talk about that.
Thanks for watching The Young Turks, really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, Jayar. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.